but to the Cup. Every year, we sort of look to it, to the Melbourne Cup, to produce the stories that help to define Australia. It's been really important in that way. All the romance and the legends and all that, you know, battlers and the battler horses and all. But all this looking for stories from the Cup has got a lot harder as the race has become about money, big money, as it's attracted big fields of foreign horses chasing that money, foreign trainers, foreign jockeys. And it's even harder to get an Australian story out of the Melbourne Cup when an Australian crowd is banned from the track. Now, last year, oh, how we celebrated when the Melbourne Cup winner for the first time in a decade was an Australian-trained horse ridden by an Australian jockey. At last. But not this year. Once again, the Cup was won by a foreign horse, by Twilight Payment, Irish-bred, Irish-trained. Now, its jockey was at least Australian, Joe McNeil, and its owner was too, Lloyd Williams, who bought the horse in Ireland just last year and has now won his 7th Melbourne Cup. But I reckon, in fact, the big story out of this Cup may be a tragedy, the death of yet another horse in the Cup itself. Patrick Carlyon is an author and journalist at the Herald Sun. He's also the son of a great writer of the track, the late and lamented Les Carlyon. Patrick Carlyon was at the track today and I spoke to him earlier. Patrick Carlyon, thank you so much for joining me. We've got an Irish horse, we've got an Irish trainer and no Australian crowd. I know you're a great writer, but can even you build an Australian story from the 2020 Melbourne Cup?
Well, Andrew, what you do have is a Victorian jockey who is very Australian, and basically he's just had a baby. He's proudly on top of the premiership table for jockeys. He's 25. He's new to the game, well, relatively new to the game. And so you take away all those stale type sort of scenarios where you're talking about Irish Raiders and Lloyd Williams, who has obviously won his 7th race. And you actually have a pretty exciting fairy tale in that.
Well, Lloyd Williams, I mean, that bloke, he is now the owner of 7 Melbourne Cups. He must have such an eye for horses.
Well, what he's done for a long time, and he talks about it quite openly, is basically go and buy what he hopes are the best European horses to bring them to the Melbourne Cup. Now, the Melbourne Cup is his specialty. He's been, as he puts it, he's aspired to win Melbourne Cup since he was a little boy, listening to the race, growing up in Melbourne. He sort of sees it as the heart of Melbourne. And so he has spent probably hundreds of millions of dollars over decades to win these Cups. Now, obviously, the prize money is very good, but potentially the ledger wouldn't be that good, despite all the glory, financially speaking.
Now, this is the first time you would have seen a deserted grandstand. There was no standing ovation of a crowd around the winning horse and jockey when they came in back from the field. What was it like without a crowd?
Look, it was sort of funereal, if you like, Andrew. It was sort of you had the green swathes of the grass there. You had no litter of bodies and cans, and as you say, it was such a hushed sort of build-up. It was almost like people were too scared to actually speak loudly. It was unlike, I've been to, probably a dozen Cups. It's unlike anything I've ever been to before, simply because you could look down the straight, or you could stand at the winning post as I did when the horses went over the line. And I think I counted 17 people around me, and they were all workers, essential workers doing a job. There was no cheers, there was no sort of hype, there was no buzz that the Melbourne Cup is famous for. So it really was very strange.
I think it reminds us, I mean, I wasn't there, Patrick, so maybe I'm just getting a jaundiced view, but it sort of, I think, reminds us that the Melbourne Cup really is about people, not so much the horses.
Absolutely. Look, there are so many strands to the Melbourne Cup party, and I think it's better to call it a party perhaps than a race, in the sense that you have the horses, they're the pretext for everybody to be there. But then you have the crowds, who, it's the one day of the year for so many Victorians especially, to actually let loose, to have a good day out, to have a bet. And the fact that there was no people there really did make it incredibly strange. It's not something you'd want to repeat. because there was no atmosphere at all, which is no one's fault. I think the VRC did a wonderful job just staging the race. But you really do need that party atmosphere to make it feel like a Melbourne Cup.
You say no one's fault, but I couldn't help notice that there were plenty of people at Randwick over in Sydney. It's Victoria that seems to have gone the ban the crowd route. So that's really a shame. Now, Patrick, there is a push to ban horse racing as cruel, and today again one of the runners of the Cup died. Anthony van Dyck was euthanised after breaking a fetlock in the Melbourne Cup. Bad luck for the horse, obviously, but also for the trainer, Aidan O'Brien, who had another horse euthanised also at the Melbourne Cup just 2 years ago. Green Senator Mehreen Faruqi has said this shows that horse racing is cruel and has to be shut down. This cry against the Cup, that's going to grow, isn't it, with a record like this?
Oh, look, obviously what happened to Anthony van Dyck is going to be a massive talking point over the next few days and weeks. It's something, as you rightly point out, has become a growing sort of issue in terms of horse racing. Now, the purists would say, well, look, it is the most dangerous sport going around. Jockeys face life and death scenarios every day, as do the horses. The industry would argue, well, these animals are better prepared, better looked after, better cared for than any other animals going around. But it's going to be a big talking point for a long time, Andrew, certainly.
Is there anything specific about the Melbourne Cup that makes it more deadly for horses?
Look, it's a very long race. Flemington, given the time of year, often Flemington is not as dry as a lot of the European horses like the tracks to be. They're used to it being softer underground. It's hot, and certainly today it's hot. And they're all factors that can contribute to what is an incredibly long race. It's a lung-busting marathon, the Melbourne Cup, and it's run at a breakneck speed. And sometimes, unfortunately, there are horses who don't handle it all well for one reason or another. It's just a very dangerous sport, and always has been.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think we'll be hearing more about this in the coming days, and also every year that the Melbourne Cup comes up. Anyway, we shall see what they can do to make it a little safer for the horse. I don't know if that's possible. Patrick Carlyon, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.